Hello, and welcome to the 38th Frontend Coffee Break, a podcast when we take a break from our everyday lives, grab a cup of joe, and discuss about different front-end related topics. And today, as always, my colleague Ricard, how are you today?
Very good, Chucho. Thank you. What are you drinking? Decaf?
Yes,
Big
of
surprise.
course, it's
Big
decaf.
surprise.
I have recently reduced the amount of regular coffee that I drink. I still drink the very first cup of coffee in the morning is regular coffee.
Triple espresso.
It's a big one. Yeah. No, that is not a big bowl. This cup explicitly, and then the rest I'm starting to go for decaf. Although usually don't. It doesn't matter, but I'd rather just go let's go decaf just in case. And are you drinking something today?
You will never know, as usual. My beverage are a secret.
The mystery beverage
that you will never uncover.
Hey, if we ever create some beverage based on the podcast, the Frontend Coffee Break official drinks, it's gonna be like decaf and
something
question
else.
mark, what it could be. What could it be? Is it alcohol?
Buy it and try it out.
Okay, so today we have a very interesting topic. We were discussing it last week in the internal podcast that we have at the company, and we had a very interesting discussion, which I think we both wanted to continue talking about a little bit, and this is what we're going to be talking about today, which is more related to, not specifically about, but more related to ethics and trying to make the world a better place a little bit, and the things that you can do as a developer to maybe contribute to in a positive way to the world, but also, as I mentioned at the beginning, the ethics about what are you willing to work in. As a developer, you get to work in all types of industries, and you get to do a lot. They may ask for you to do a lot of shady things, but it's usually not a profession that it's associated. For example, sometimes some people might associate lawyers with have a bad reputation because of what they do. That represents criminals. Well, just saying, just as a topic, that doesn't mean that they do. Or the same thing as others. Right now, for example, I don't like very much real estate people, especially because of the situation in Barcelona. When I meet, I come to Barcelona to do real estate, it's like, well, go back from wherever you came from. So today we're going to be discussing about this, the ethics a little bit as a front-end developer, and things that you can do to contribute to the world in a little bit of a better place. So, I know it's a long introduction. At first, let's begin with how we started and where we are. We can compare on what we were willing to do at the beginning, or what were our work ethics, or what we expected to do, and now. And by ethics, I don't mean the ones that you do at your job, like being honest, not lying, and this kind of things. I mean, we take this for granted, but more of the types of jobs that you're willing to do. I don't know if there's anything that you have any idea of when you begin, or I can begin telling the story of how I started.
I can tell you how I started.
And please. When you were a young developer?
Very young.
18
very
years
young.
ago?
Many years ago, I just wanted money. That's plain and simple, right? I mean, you start to work for money. What else do you work for at the beginning, right? When I think about these things like moral ethics, what industries, what clients, back then I had no thought about this. It's just, okay, I'm going to finally my first job, right? Starting working as a developer, and just do whatever, right? Luckily enough, at the beginning, I did not have any controversial sort of clients. It was all like small businesses here in Spain, be it, hotels, be it restaurants, be it like other B2B companies. So really nothing that now would make me look at sideways, right? So I was fortunate enough, I guess, at the beginning. What about you?
Well, I haven't had that many jobs in the sense that I've been quite stable. And some of the first things that I started working at schools. But one thing that I knew when I came out, I was a little bit on the other side. I wasn't in it for the money. That doesn't mean that I didn't want to earn well. But at the beginning, in my mind, it was a little bit, I was still getting used to like, I want to do something that I enjoy doing. That was my goal. Like, I want to end up doing something that I love. That's what I wanted. So I was still figuring out what that was until I found Frontend. I didn't know exactly. I tried a few different things. But one thing that I did know that I didn't want to work in or at were two things. Well, one thing. I mean, I had two things that were my limits. One, I was not willing to work for banks on the back end part. I've had heard some horrible stories during college from one of the teachers about things that could happen, the responsibility that you have when you're working with banks. I mean, you're handling money. So back then, I felt that I wasn't experienced enough, to be able to have the responsibility of coding transactions in money that required money. I of course I didn't know what type of work I would really be doing in a bank, but I thought banks no, because I would not like to be working on that.
Okay, but for the pressure of handling these real transactions, people's money or people's like maybe losing money for the bank, not like political or moral views on the bank, but rather the implications of playing with this sort of industry. I get it.
Yeah, and there was a story that one of the teachers told us that I think it was something related to IBM at one point, and how they sold the servers to, I don't remember which company. I don't know if it even was for the government, but in the end, like, they sued the company and they went for this person because he was the one that represented. So IBM took him away from Mexico and sent him somewhere else. But yeah, it was a little bit like, no, I don't want that responsibility. And then the other one was precisely government. And the reason that was more of personal reasons. Growing up, my father had a governmental job and I hated that. I just hated what I saw. Not that my father did, but the world that I saw there. Of course, you're a kid, you see things very differently through very different lenses. But I remember that going out, it's like, no, I do not want to work for government. And right now I've done both. Well, not the back end part, but I've worked for banks.
Your soul, your kid's soul. I get it.
No, I think you mature and you figure out who you are with time. I remember that, for example, industries that I haven't worked with, but I've done interviews for in the past. For example, have included besides the typical how do you say consultoria?
Being in a big firm, big consultancy firm. I don't know how to say it.
Big consultancy firm. I, for example, did once a interview for a company that worked for porn sites.
All right.
That they created porn. And actually, I found it fascinating, the idea of doing all the things that they do, because they work a lot with the front end to do a lot of bad things, in the sense that trap the user or trick the user to do one thing or another.
Oh, kudos to that. Is it, how do you say this? Is it a link to the Dark Patterns episode number 35?
Yes.
Well done, Chucho. Well done. 35. Go listen to it.
And I was interested in because it's like, they do really interesting, like they find ways to exploit JavaScript to the maximum level. So it's like, I like the idea. But then again, on the flip side, I heard people saying, well, you're watching a lot of porn, not watching it on work, but there's a lot of porn there, and you end up becoming a little bit incensed. I don't know. There were a lot of things.
I just thought that these people would use like placeholders. Like, I mean, it would be very aggressive for you to look at real videos or real images, but you would use always placeholders, regular videos of cartoons or placeholders of Nicolas Cage, right? So really, you wouldn't be looking at the final product, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine now on hindsight, it's like, yes, most likely you're not exposed necessarily to that. But yeah, I remember that I wouldn't have still today any problem working on that. But anyhow, nowadays, now that you've grown from wanting to make money and not really having any other goal than to make money, and today, is there any company that you would not be? What are your limits?
Just as a disclaimer, that was my first job. That's why I wanted the money. I mean, I didn't have any previous like McDonald's job back then, so it was my first job. That's why I wanted to make some cash. Nowadays, for sure, right? We don't have to go into details, but for sure, there are industries for me that I do not feel comfortable working with, right? Maybe pork would be one of them, right? If you think about the whole industry, maybe some things are regulated, some things are not regulated. The same for government stuff, or the same for political sides. I mean, it could be that you're not really comfortable, like helping out on these causes, right? So definitely, I can see that on everybody. I can see that on me and probably you. And we have certain topics that we would not like to touch. And it's not all about the money, right? Once you are in a situation where you're in a first world country and you're okay and you really have stability and safety, you can be picky, right? You can pick and choose. And I understand people that could not be picky. Maybe if you're in a situation where you really need to make cash because you have to maintain your family, your rent, whatever it is, I understand that. So I will never look back at somebody that really needs the money. But those that are in a, like, let's say, Silicon Valley sort of thing, or Europe, nice countries, working for that, I look them at a different way. Yeah.
I wouldn't agree more with this. This is something that I was thinking, and it's sometimes picking the type of job that you want, that you can do, is a luxury, and it's a privilege.
Yeah.
And we cannot look down, and we cannot look on a higher moral ground or ethic ground over people that, you're doing this or that, you are working for this industry. I think that there should be no shame. There should be no shame in that sense, because sometimes, as you said, sometimes it's the difference between keeping your house or sleeping on the street, accepting a job that you might not necessarily enjoy because of ethically, that you do not agree ethically with. We can go deeply in with ethics, but I think in general terms, it's like, in the end, what we're doing is we want, what we do is for survival, and we cannot judge people on this based on this. You say, so you're working for, let's say, an industry that supports this cause that I don't like. Let's not get specifically political. There's no need to get political right now here, but it's like, you support this, then you don't mind working for this company that supports this cause that I don't like. It's like, you're evil. It's like, really? That doesn't necessarily, won't necessarily be true. And sometimes it's like, that's what you have to go. And not everyone can have the luxury of being very ethical. And that's a little bit scary sometimes. We've had the luxury of doing that nowadays. For me, there's one thing that I have in the past said no to, definitely. I've been asked and I said no, and that nowadays I would continue saying no, and I would push for the no, probably for all the way through almost to the very last moment. I don't know if I'm pushed to the extreme, how would I react? But the one cause that I would never personally work for is any company or anything that goes against LGBTQ rights. I would never go against that.
I think makes sense, right? I mean, why not? It's totally understandable. And the same way we don't judge people that really need the money and are working for evil companies, the same way they would not judge you to choose not to support these sort of entities or companies or whatever it is that you want to do worst for. I mean, in the end, if you boil it down, people might say, yeah, but it's just JavaScript or HTML. Not really. Because you want to do a great job at it. You want to really excel at what you do, and you will build excellent UIs. You will build amazing landing pages and products that people will use, and it's really indirectly you're helping those people. So yeah, anyway, we got it.
But now that you're talking about helping, I mean, there's things that people choose certain jobs because they want to help.
Yeah.
For example, there's lawyers that, going back to the topic of lawyers that choose to be pro bono or choose to do very specific or take very specific jobs because they want to help out. And the same thing applies to a lot of other industries. And even in developing, as a developer, you can choose. Sometimes you can make an effort. You can even make a sacrifice when you can maybe afford it or support people. Just even if they can't afford it, some people are like this. They make a sacrifice to work to give back, to work for something, a good thing. I don't know if have any examples of this.
For government, I've seen like sort of this
government,
quote unquote.
What do you mean?
No,
for government.
called how to say, not influencer, but these developers that are very very good in the industry, and you see them working for private, like for as a consultants, and they decide to step back from these high paying jobs and go work for the government because they want to help out the IT systems. And they say, okay, my government has a horrible system of, I don't know, health. Like we're talking always about software, right? Software, hardware, not about the process itself, but saying, hey, I think I can help. I'm very good at, I don't know, performance. Let me join the internal teams at my government or local government or even national government. And I want to push it. I want to have these systems to have more accessibility for the people, for the citizens, right? And people do that sometimes, like the same people that maybe go to work for NGOs and stuff. So I've seen that. I don't know if I would do it, at least for Spain. Wow. I don't really support it, but I've seen people in the US do it. Yeah.
There's one side when you were saying this, like they want to go to try to make something better. One thing that I think of that I'd like to work in to make it better is definitely Renfe.
Why the trains? Yeah, the trains. Although the website for Spain, railroads in Spain has improved considerably over the years. Do you recall that time where they had this, in the HTML source code, they had this line that said, "We don't know how this works, just don't delete it."
Yes.
It was in production for the national railroad system. I was like, what the heck?
And I think that they made a joke in the satire newspaper that they were saying that Renfe apologizes because the website worked perfectly for 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so those things, right? And it has huge impact because you're saying, okay, if it's a national something and some sort of railroad or whatever it is, it really impacts a lot of people. And in making a good job there, applying your techniques and your skills to that might benefit a lot of people, not just one company making millions of something else, right? So yeah, it's good stuff.
Moving on, this is a little bit about ethics and stuff, but if you want to give back, this was a perfect example of how to give back, like looking for specific jobs that that need in help of better, or not better, but of good, devoted developers, motivated developers, and sometimes they're not there because they don't pay that well. So this is a fantastic example. But another example of giving back might be, for example, open source. And I think that this is something that anyone at any given position that you are, whether you're starting, whether you're on a very high paying job, this is something that you can do because you don't need to go work for a company. You can just support open source and give back through that.
Without it, we will not be here. I mean, I am 100% convinced that without open source, the web community would just not work. We would not be what we are. We would not be delivering the UIs or applications that we do because when you work on anything on web, you're using for sure open source tools. You're using from Webpack to something in the CSS, from something in it's. I'm for sure convinced that you have hundreds of npm packages or something in the server that's open source. Right? So imagine if we didn't have that. Some people have to give their time to maintain open source repositories, contribute, and you can do that too. Like I've done it in the past for sure. I mean, you gotta find what you're comfortable with and just go there, help with issues, open pull requests, even that would be amazing, right? But just, being in the repo and helping out people that are like you developers fighting their own causes, just go there. It's a great way to give back and something that companies like, at least we do in Content Incentive, we like, how do you say this? We help promote that. And if we go back to episode 25, exactly. We encourage these things. In episode 25, we did the interview with Dragan, where the company actually pushes Dragan and the team to open source our front-end build system. So we actually welcome contributing to open source.
And go listen to episode 25. It's quite nice, quite a nice and interesting episode. Yeah, it's funny because it's like, it's the moneymaker, the things that we work with. Sometimes the software that we do is the software that we work that gives us money. But I mean, it's a matter of should you only consume open source and benefit from it, or should you give back? And in the end, we're consuming it for sure, as you said, in every single day. If you're a developer, most likely you're benefiting from open source. Even things that are very commercial will benefit from open source phones and commercial software. So you should be able to give back. And if you want to know how, I think that we talked about it in episode 35. Go and uh, listen to that episode to see how you can contribute. But then again, also we should be happy, or we should be grateful for those people that are actually contributing to open source, right?
Be nice to them. Like we've seen, I think all of us have seen issues in public repositories demanding that this gets fixed or demanding this gets changed. Yeah. And I'm like, these people don't work for you. Maybe they have regular jobs, and then on their free time, either paid time on the company or outside of the working hours, they contribute and they, help out and just release new versions. So don't expect anybody to work for you. Just, be super polite, be constructive, and if you can, open yourself a pull request so they can review it and move it on, rather than just saying, hey, please fix this defect. Or, hey, why is this tool not doing what I need? Come on. Like, let's be like people first, person first, and then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a way to contribute. Definitely a fantastic way to contribute. Now, of all these open source, we are using a lot of these open source tools, but there's also other tools that we use that might not be that nice that we're using. Like, for example, search and AI. Why? Basically because right now, a very, and pun intended, hot topic is climate change. And I think that part of a lot of things that we work with as developers not encourage but don't contribute very positively to the environment, because even if you don't realize it, for example, things like searching in Google or any other search engine, this has a cost, and not only an electrical cost but a carbon cost. It has a carbon footprint, and the same thing goes for AI. How do you? I mean, just let me give you a little bit a few numbers. In 2018, before the whole cryptocurrency thing exploded, I think that Google searches were contributing to 40% of the carbon emissions of the world in internet-wise of the internet.
Yeah, amazing.
40% searches, and back then, I think that every second, half a ton of CO2 of carbon dioxide was emitted just because of the energy consumption of the resources that were needed. Because when you do a search, you don't do it into one server. You do it to a lot of servers, and the first one to answer is the one that gives you back because they want to give you a quick service. Now, how do you feel about that using searches?
It's a great topic to try. I think not everybody realizes that. I think people that are nowadays just chatting with bots all the time, like they just have whatever it is, Alexa, ChatGPT, whatever it is in their phones, and they just do full-on conversations for minutes and minutes and minutes. They don't realize how costly it is. Not costly in money for them, but costly, as you said, for the environment and for the just planet to just do these queries, right? It's not as serving just a simple website HTML, which is 1 kilobyte, and then it's super cached and it's very small. But rather, it is expensive, like asking the servers for data, right? And it's not, surely there's caches everywhere, but usually it's data that they have to compute, especially for AI. They have to come up with these things, right? So they don't realize that. I don't love it. I really don't use much of AI, just Copilot. Yeah? And it's not that much. And hopefully, I hope that the trend is going to more on a, let's say, local AI results rather than having to go to servers and get information from there. But I see the trend of, at least for code-wise, it's more of on a local sort of way, right? Which would maybe lower the footprint, but still, I don't feel great. I don't feel great that when you see these numbers on articles and researches, that AI takes so much energy to get things done, and it's not great. It's not great.
I think, yeah, the amount just. Well, this I didn't get to review it before we got together today, but I think that, for example, 5 ChatGPT searches consumed 1 liter of water or something like that, just to keep the servers cool. And so this is, I guess, an average or something. That's a lot.
That's a lot, man. For 5 queries that you could just, it's before you would just go to your encyclopedia on the wall, and now you ask ChatGPT for 5 stupid questions, which probably is like, yeah, stupid things, because things you could maybe Google or things that you should know. You just ask ChatGPT again. Come on, don't do that. Let's all be
I think that one of the things on the bright side is that this is costly, and it does have a quite a high carbon footprint, but it's also very costly for the companies that have it. So they are really interested in investing on making it cheaper, and not only money wise. That means that also it has to be more energy efficient. Way it has to be better, more efficient, as you say. So hopefully with time they will find more efficient ways to work on this. As you say, maybe for example the Copilot can be something more localized. Maybe even to have your local repositories at your office, or local repositories that have all the information that you need, because it's not that really that much that specialized maybe. But yeah, it's a little bit scary, and this is things that we as developers use every single day. We Google the things, we go to GitHub, we go to Stack Overflow, we ask Copilot or ChatGPT to tell us things, or so many of the other AI services, and it has a cost. So we're not saying not use them, but this is just like trying to raise awareness, like these things cost.
Yeah, be mindful. It's not just about paying the 20 euros a month that ChatGPT is going to charge you, because in the end, it's not about money. In the end, it's not about if they charge you 1,000 euros a month, but you're burning the environment. It's like, it's not about money. It's about asking them to be more green and friendly. So what can you do as a developer to be more green if we move away from search and the AI?
Well, fortunately, there are still in the development world, there are alternatives. There are green food. They are eco-friendly options. Specifically, going back to the farms that we were talking, the data farms, the ones that have all the servers, and there's companies that actually offer these services, like saying we are green, or companies that try to help companies that are conscious about this to be more green. Reading about it, I found, for example, that they build the buildings, the facilities, they're all very eco-friendly. They try to use renewable energies as much as they can. They try to reduce resources in such a way that they try to consume less energy, less resources like water. There are already farms that optimize this or try to go in this direction, which is fantastic. So, for example, if you're a company and you want to hire a service, maybe that's something that is worth looking into. Like, hey, we're green, or we're trying to be more green, or we have clients that are interested in this. Then it makes sense to invest in. Okay, these are the kind of places where we're going to get our services. But there's also some other things that you as developer can actually do, which is, for example, make more efficient websites. Definitely, because one of the things that these servers, one of the things that the consumption comes from it, because of if you serve huge amounts of JavaScript images, big things, big resources, that is costly. So performance, definitely.
But my website is just visited for 5 people. Why should I care?
No, I think it's for many reasons. One of them, it's because it's cool. It's interesting. It's cool. A challenge.
It's cool.
And it will make you a better developer. It'll make you basically that, a much better developer. I'm not going to say a better person, no, but it's going to make you a better developer. It's going to make you improve yourself. So I think it's worth the while. And also, it's going to make, even those 5 people, do you want those 5 people to have bad experience when they visit your website? I mean, do you want to wait for 10 seconds before everything is loaded?
Agreed. I like the approach. I mean, you don't have to be a three-figure eco lover, but you can say, yeah, I want to be the best web performance consultant in the market, and then you can learn how to squeeze every kilobyte of data from your website and have low footprint in terms of compression, in terms of, it's not only about just weight, which is something that the servers need to do, but also like compute power, like how expensive, complicated things are if you're using a lot of JavaScript, even if it's small JavaScript, but if it takes a lot to compute in either server because it's a backend query and it takes a lot, or it's something in the phone and it takes a lot of heat, everything counts, right? It's not just about these things. And I've seen people even like go the super extra mile and say, this website is powered by solar power, and they have at home like a Raspberry Pi. They add like
nice.
A solar panel, and they host it with Apache or Nginx, something very easy. They host their website at home using a Raspberry Pi, which costs nothing, and using solar power. That's amazing. I love it.
Yes. And maybe it's not going to be the fastest, not because it's not performant, but still, it's a way to go. Instead of hiring a server that might be more costly, this is a nice way to go. But go learn performance and make your sites much more performant, which is something that we try to do with the Edge delivery service that we can talk in a future episode of. But anyhow, I think this is all the time that we have for this episode. I'd like to hear from our listeners, maybe what do they think about it? Is there any line that they would not cross when looking for a job? And also on the flip side, what things do they do to contribute to the world in this sense? That would be nice to know.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Ricardo.
Thank you, Chucho.
And see you next episode.